So, theories of Magick, Tribalism and Individuation, or Thoughtforms and Egregors. From the little book called Methods and Theories of Magick as a Select Praxis Accompaniment to Occultosophia. Denk forms are treated in this briefing as thought forms, subtle emanations of the mental field around the human mind. Read by telepaths, menpaths, the other side. By necessity, this brief is one aspected and does not entail a majority of other models to explain a whole, but far from dilettante, its duties focus on a figment of the whole which it attempts to describe. Thought forms can take as many forms as there are modalities and functions of the human mind. For example, the simplest thought form is a verbalization of the thought, "Here be dragons." The most complex and sophisticated thought forms are generated by silence and synergy, polysyntaxed, multilevel, polysemous, multicontextual, masked, disguised, encoded, encrypted, ciphered, psychosomatically programmed. A ritual dance could be an example, astralistically transmitted to the receiver as a message. Egregors can be a common denominator of collectives of two or more mental spheres of people. They interpenetrate each other depending on the koinonia or togetherness of ideatic ecclesia or community. That is, they are extracted and emancipated as the character or ethos of a particular egregor within the boundaries of the mental sphere. It can be a biopsychological egregor, an instinctive egregor such as fear or arousal. It can be a sophisticated ideological egregor, for example, authoritarianism or anarchism. It can be religious, for example, Christian or Buddhist, an occult egregor, exempli gratia, fraternitas Saturni or Ordo Templi Orientis, a linguistic egregor, exempli gratia, the way we express ideas. It can be a cultural egregor, that is, nation, collectivity of ethnic identities and related behaviors and mentalities. Unknowingly associating with an egregor by mixing with people who have similar arrangements of thought forms is often the case with people who are neither mature nor have developed autonomy and critical thinking. With a weak resistance to the submissive influence of foreign egregors, which ends in the absorption of mental ideatic clusters in one's own mental sphere, according to the law of distribution. This law states that each egregor, thought form, and idea will be distributed differently according to the cognitive topological spaces of each mind, according to the phenotyping and liminal entropy, the resilience of liminal absorption threshold, and their critical breakthroughs in resilience to conditioning. A model enforces a way of seeing. So if you develop a model, for example, Dianetics of Scientologists, you push this model down the people, hence the proneness to conditioning is much easier. Therefore, they will be interpreted differently when translated into the language of persona, and what follows, how are they interpreted? Egregors can intermingle, and the result is multiple, changing constellations of mental fields in mutual dynamics and interdependencies. Consciously connecting with a group egregor helps to attune to a particular working group, whether in magical work or in ceremonial affinity, with a larger group of participants. Conversely, we can be ritually indoctrinated into an egregor, be it a cult, a blind religion, a political ideology, or sealed into an egregor, for example, through baptismal mark and the like. Egregors can be protected by their own mental field, by entities, foreign entities or external astral entities charged with their protection, and by their own power, or by people and entities and their souls charged with working on the egregor. It may be that unlicensed or other entities and persons, magicians for example, plug in under the given egregor and during its operations imprint the egregor with their own mental cuts, codes, and polishes, or root or camouflage themselves within it. Some egregors are programmable, those of the Scientological sects, for example Dianetics, Jehovah's Witnesses, fundamental evangelical groups, various New Age movements, deliberate social engineering of sections of society via the media, infotainment, or computerized cybernetics, radionics, as well as computational demonology, and the Hive project, propagated via the 8th sphere of radio communications and frequencies compatible with the resonance of human brains. People with great willpower, high resistance to conditioning, and magnetism can either survive the onslaught of indoctrination and brainwashing or influence many people through their charisma. Whether they are right or wrong, whether they spread harmful nonsense or realized ideas, they can dominate group egregores and consciously or unconsciously implant their own mental sphere programming in other group egregore. Sometimes it may work like a virus, sometimes consciously implanted. In working ethics, it is crucial not to interfere in the mental sphere of others. Others will meddle with yours, but punitive and retaliatory action is a separate chapter. This is also related to the soul sphere, because the soul is often a passive recipient of thought forms, emotive cognitive content, and egregores. Think of imprints or engrams. Conduct your communications carefully. People who are susceptible to manipulation should arm themselves with methods that help them recognize their own autonomy, become self-aware, and understand their own position, coordinates, and relationship to other people, ideas, and the world. Some people, and certainly those who are on the other side together with entities, can read parts of the information from the mental sphere. All influence is a kind of a rhetorics. In other words, there is nothing that is not under influence of anything. We receive influences all the time. It is beneficial to train synthetic languages and methods of encryption, as well as to camouflage the declared intentions under and outside the subliminal fields to avoid trying to decode them by foreign parties, external parties. Sometimes, frankly, openness is recommended because a fortified citadel is just inviting to be besieged and conquered. But in all major magical and psyops, it is advantageous to scramble or operate on a plane that is inaccessible to the other side, but offered to large powers, at least the parts we want to get away with, and avoid detection by low-scale maneuvering. On an individual level, that is personal privacy, inner silence is recommended. While we can work with non-verbal ideas, mentalities, idea constructs, motives, inclinations, which have enough individual imprints to be undecipherable by the majority of uninvoked entities and human magicians. Mind scrambling of uninvoked entities. Mind scrambling is a useful technique where we create a false facade in our minds, a false identity, a false thankful, deceptive communication where we communicate only the parts that we want to convey, or create illusory masks that are a form of affront, defensive disinformation, misinformation, and denial of information. Candor is only useful in direct communication, and even then, when everything has eyes and ears, we do not go paranoid, but we can play openness and use double or triple speak to convey false information to the other side, while withholding true information from our interlocutors. We should often think about what would normal people do to us if they knew the content of our thoughts, as if public knowledge. The same method is applied to the other side, cautiously, harshly, firmly, in a Machiavellian or rather legalistic Heinphasian, that was Machiavellian 17 centuries before Machiavelli, way. Openly only when necessary. From my experience, I have come to the conclusion that great forces, and we are dealing here with ontological powers of high magic, with which we work during these ceremonies, recognize our true intentions and contents anyway, as if reprojecting and introjecting our intentions and the whole script, even if they are veiled to unauthorized persons and entities. This method is as old as African shamanic masks, which were meant to imitate the nature spirits or demons, to be one of them, so that the soul totem of the wild beast, the sorcerer, the diamond is tamed, and to disguise our own intentions, because when we hide behind a mask, we separate the space of the known or the profane from that belongs to the spirits or sacred, and to the uncanny, terra incognita. Children have a similar method when they say, I am not here. In the ritualization of their theater, they disappear into their environment, playing hide and seek or throwing away the toy. They play little magicians banishing the toy, and it disappears in their imagination. This is essentially how it is when I know my friends' children who scatter their toys in the abysses of treasure troves that are so difficult for adults to discover. When we move through the streets, we dehumanize people a bit by the force of our habit. They never receive the masks of closeness, of proximity, of intimacy. The other is a little distant. The shared glances are devoid of content. They are at least phatic. If something catches our attention, they can be erotic or at most magnetic. Nevertheless, there is no engagement here that exists between acquaintances, relatives, or close friends. The interpretation of gestures is a matter of consent and anonymity. The more subtle gestures are rarely noticed or misinterpreted. The absence of gestures can be mistaken for a gesture. The obvious ones are quickly grasped. I have experimented a lot with indifferent observation, that is, taking myself out of the context of gestures as if I did not notice them, and closely observing the behavior of the people around me. I have found that when they lack feedback, when they cannot see themselves reflected in you, whether subconsciously or overtly, they become agitated because their ever-changing monkey brains demand input so that they can respond. It is hard to treat the other stranger, the xeno, as something different. It is a treat for your own movements, gestures, perhaps something fascinating, something you make fun of, something you fear, but rarely approach. When we get to know a person, we enter an imaginary virtuality of a sphere of togetherness. In the realm of knowledge, by establishing contact, having a conversation, we deepen this virtuality. When we shape interpersonal relations in the way that is most useful or amiable to us, we do not feel that our privacy is being revealed, that we must jovially divulge any information. Instead, we rattle masks, narratives, small talk, keep conversations, showing a greater or lesser part of our authenticity or false masks. There are variations in metamorphosis. In the end, no one knows who we are, and this is a fait accompli, because some circles are so damaged that they should not know. It can lead to gossip and reputational damage that is not our fault. But these people were never of high character. In the end, those who should know see a holistic being that we wanted to portray. And this is yet another achievement, and find the circle of friends there. Sometimes it is impossible to create a facade for our person, but the more skillfully we master our being, the better we succeed in communicating important things we want to pass on, be it ideas, self-expression, or something else. So I have dined with political officials and president of a country and his wife, and charmed them all. I have been in low circles and seen strong and tough among the brutes. I have been among snobs and pretended to be a redneck to their disdain. I have been among smart people and had something graceful to contribute. When pigs rush in, despite them, or you will lose your nature. Why did I write all this? Because it is beneficial to deal with thought forms and group unity in a similar way. If we mingle with everyone, we become like the mob. We generalize, we lose our precious time. We chart spiritual spheres of people who are pathetic and we lose important expressions. We lose our inner truth in the end, and power that could be used by a parasitic egregor. We lose our nature and ethos among those unworthy of it, and forgot that we were lions and dragons amongst them. When human resources are in constant derangement and our thought forms are in chaotic motion, it is difficult to achieve effective magical communication. Using Shannon and Weaver's theory of mathematical communication, one of the interfaces illustrates how we can achieve one goal by communicating from many transmitting sources, or how we can achieve many goals among many receivers by communicating with one source, multicast. The whole book is worth studying. The rest is a matter of media selection, intent, dissemination, rhetoric, tools and algorithms of content delivery, its duration, continuity, strength, context appropriate to the audience, its substance, place, value, status, interpretation, reception, discharge of the content to the final recipient according to a particular vision. And it's negotiation in unison. No one wants to pet people who choose to follow a will of someone else rather than take power over themselves responsibly into their own hands. No one is wasteful enough amongst us to educate fools, and yet you must guard against it. Stupidity is better controlled before it reaches power. By the time the mob appoints the pigs to the elites, it is far too late. Therefore, remember, the key word is influence, resilience, critical thought, and scripts. Once you follow a false script of life, of identity, of knowledge, of sociologists of ignorance or knowledge, you're buried in control, other control. And ignorance is the first key of power. Always. And whenever you encounter things that are against your autonomous thought, against your cognitive emotive freedom, if it is responsible, if something is trying to influence you, then you know, and then you counteract by educating yourself, by thinking critically, by discerning. And why is it of no concern to most people? They work on automatisms. They're not a threat to power. They're not a threat to the past narrations because they're walking within it. They're not a part of the grand history. They are the subservient executors of this narration in history. I'm not trying to dehumanize people. I'm just saying to inform those of you who are interested in how these mechanics of identities, egregores, thought forms work within greater frameworks of reference. Thank you.